really quickly. So the next thing what I'd like to do is show you guys how to simplify I to the 18th. Now the only thing we've talked about is I is equal to the square root of negative 1. And you guys can see I have the table, and I left that table up there. But what I'm going to do, Tira, is I'm going to show you guys how to recreate this table. Because the student asked me, it's like, you know, Mr. McLogan, do I have to memorize this table? And basically, no, you don't have to memorize it. You don't have to memorize the table. But basically, what you do need to know is how to recreate the table. So if we know I is equal to negative 1, we need to figure out what I to the 18th power is. All right? So what we're going to do is I'm just going to keep on getting up to just to keep on going. So I go to I squared. Well, that's really I times, that's really the square root of negative 1 times the square root of negative 1. And if you multiply the square root of negative 1 times the square root of negative 1, does anybody know what that would be? Negative 1. OK? So that's just going to equal negative 1. Now, if I go to I cubed, that equals basically I squared times the square root of negative 1. Or basically, let's just do it this way. Instead of square root of negative 1, let's write it by I. Well, I squared, ladies and gentlemen, is equal to negative 1. So negative 1 times I is just?
Why are you rewriting? What did you go right in?
Just because I'm explaining it so you can follow along. It's just going to equal negative I. Now, if I wanted to figure out I to the 4th, that's equal to I squared times I squared. Again, I'm rewriting this on values that we know. I squared is equal to negative 1. So basically, this is negative 1 times negative 1, which is equal to positive 1. So therefore, I did the first 4. Now, again, we got to go up to 18, right? So we can continue along this. If I continue this, we know that I to the 4th is I. So I just do I to the 4th. So I do I to the 4th times I. Right? I'm going to use values we know. I to the 4th is equal to 1 times I is just equal to I. So we know I to the 5th is I. So if I did I to the 6th, that's basically I to the 5th times I. Yes? Well, we know I to the 5th is the same thing as I. So basically, that's I times I, which is I squared, which is negative 1. So what I want you guys to understand about this, and the reason why I'm going back over it, is once we continue up to I to the 5th, I to the 6th, you guys can see it starts repeating itself. Yes? So once it gets up to 4, it repeats itself. So what I want to do when I'm trying to determine I to the 18th power, what I want to do is be able to determine how many repetitions am I going to go through. So in the number 18, how many repetitions am I going to have through 18 of 4? How many repetitions of 4 am I going to go through?
4.
With a remainder of 2. So the remainder of 2 is going to be what is my power. So I to the 18th is equal to I squared, which is simply equal to negative 1. OK? For Tansy, are you to